Poor orphan Hawking Orange sees her late mother, who was buried 5 years ago, selling food on the street. Out of
Mama!
fear, she called her. Then she disappeared. Everyone run away. What happened after she disappeared will make you scream in shock. But before then, let's see how Chioma lost her mom and how she met her late mother selling food on the street.
That afternoon, Chioma, a poor orphan, was hawking oranges under the hot sun when she saw her late mother selling food on the street. Her shop was filled to the brim, with people queued up in numbers for her food, while other food sellers beside her had little or no buyers. Amara was shocked at first. She stopped for a moment and stared at her for several minutes. It was her mother. Goosebumps filled her body, and tears filled her eyes. Chioma's hands shook as the tray of oranges slipped from her head. The oranges rolled across the dusty ground, but she didn't move to pick them up. Her eyes were locked on the woman standing behind the glass window of the small fast food shop across the street. The woman was flipping something on a griddle, laughing at something a customer said. She wore a yellow apron with "Mama's Kitchen" written across the front in bold red letters. Her hair was tied back in the exact same style Chioma's mother used to wear. The same gentle smile, the same way of tilting her head when she laughed. Chioma felt her chest tighten. Her breath came in short, painful gasps. "Mama," she whispered. But that was impossible. Her mother had died 3 years ago. Chioma had watched them lower the coffin into the ground at Atan Cemetery in Yaba. She had cried until her throat was raw and her eyes swollen shut. She had felt the world collapse around her that day, leaving her completely alone at just 9 years old. Now she was 14, living with her father's younger brother, Uncle Tunde, and his wife, Auntie Blessing, in a cramped one-room apartment in Mushin. Every morning before school, she hawked oranges on the streets to help pay for her school fees at community primary school. Every evening after school, she hawked again until her feet ached and the sun went down. This was her life now. Hard, lonely, empty. But the woman in that shop looked exactly like her mother. Chioma's heart pounded so hard she thought it might burst through her chest. A car horn blared behind her, making her jump. She stumbled backward, nearly falling into the road. "Move, girl!" a driver shouted from his window. Chioma barely heard him. She picked up her oranges with trembling hands, stuffing them back into the bag without counting them. Her eyes never left the shop. The woman disappeared into a back room, and Chioma felt panic rise in her throat. She couldn't lose sight of her. Not now. Not when she had just found her. Without thinking, Chioma crossed the street, dodging between cars and Okada motorcycles. She walked slowly toward the shop, her heart hammering against her ribs. Tears blurred Chioma's vision. She stood frozen on the sidewalk, clutching her bag of oranges like a lifeline. A part of her wanted to run inside, to throw her arms around the woman and never let go. But another part of her was terrified. What if she was wrong? What if this was just a stranger who happened to look like her mother? What if she walked in there and made a fool of herself? Or worse, what if it really was her mother, and her mother didn't recognize her? What if her mother had left on purpose? What if she had started a new life and didn't want Chioma anymore? The thought made Chioma's stomach twist into knots. She took a shaky step backward, then another. She turned and ran. She ran past the plaza, past the street vendors, past the people who called out asking if she wanted to sell her oranges. She ran until her lungs burned and her legs felt like they would give out. Finally, she collapsed on a low wall near a bus stop, gasping for air. The oranges spilled out of her bag again, but this time she didn't care. She buried her face in her hands and sobbed. People walked past her without stopping. In Lagos, a crying child on the street was not unusual. Everyone had their own problems. Everyone was trying to survive. Chioma cried until there were no more tears left. Then she sat there, staring at nothing, feeling hollow and confused. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. She needed to get home before Uncle Tunde got angry. He didn't like it when she came back late. He would accuse her of wasting time, of being lazy, of not selling enough oranges. Auntie Blessing would stand silently in the corner, avoiding eye contact, saying nothing in Chioma's defense. Slowly, Chioma gathered her oranges and counted them. She had sold only 10 pieces all day. That meant she had made only 500 naira. Uncle Tunde would be furious. But Chioma couldn't bring herself to care. All she could think about was the woman in the yellow apron. The woman who looked exactly like her mother. The woman who was supposed to be dead. That night, Chioma lay on her thin mattress on the floor of Uncle Tunde's apartment, staring at the ceiling. The room was dark except for the dim light coming from the street outside. Uncle Tunde was snoring loudly on the bed he shared with Auntie Blessing. Chioma's mind raced with questions. Could it really have been her mother? Was it possible that her mother hadn't died? That the funeral had been fake? But why would anyone fake a funeral? And if her mother was alive, why hadn't she come back for Chioma? Chioma thought back to the day her mother died, or the day she was told her mother had died. She had been at school when Uncle Tunde came to pick her up. His face had been serious, his eyes red. He had taken her hand and led her out of the classroom without explaining anything. In the car, he had finally told her, "Your mother had an accident," he had said quietly. "She didn't make it." Chioma had screamed. She had refused to believe it. But when they took her to the mortuary and she saw a body covered in a white sheet, she had broken down completely. They hadn't let her see the face. Uncle Tunde had said it was too damaged from the accident, that it would be better for her to remember her mother the way she was. At the time, Chioma had been too devastated to question it. But now, lying in the dark, she wondered, what if they had lied? What if that body hadn't been her mother at all? What if her mother had run away, started a new life, and everyone had covered it up? The thought made Chioma feel sick, but it also filled her with a strange, desperate hope. She had to know the truth. Tomorrow, she would go back to that shop. She would look the woman in the face, and she would find out once and for all if her mother was really alive. Chioma closed her eyes, but sleep didn't come easily. Her mind kept replaying the image of the woman in the yellow apron, smiling and laughing as if she didn't have a care in the world, as if she had never had a daughter, as if Chioma had never existed. The next morning, Chioma woke up before sunrise. She moved quietly through the apartment, careful not to wake Uncle Tunde or Auntie Blessing. She washed her face with cold water from the bucket in the bathroom and changed into her school uniform. It was faded and too small for her now, but it was the only one she had. She grabbed her bag of oranges from the corner and slipped out the door. The streets of Mushin were already starting to come alive. Early morning traders were setting up their stalls. Okada riders revved their motorcycles, looking for their first passengers of the day. The air smelled like frying akara and burning firewood. Chioma walked quickly, her mind focused on one thing. She had to get to Lekki. To that shop, to that woman. But Lekki was far from Mushin, and she didn't have money for transport. She would have to sell some oranges first, then use the money to take a bus. She positioned herself near a busy junction and started calling out, "Orange! Sweet orange! Buy your orange!" Her voice was automatic, practiced. She had been doing this for so long that she didn't even have to think about it anymore. People hurried past her, most of them ignoring her completely. A few stopped to buy, haggling over the price until Chioma gave in and sold for less than she wanted. By mid-morning, she had made enough for bus fare. She quickly packed up her remaining oranges and headed to the bus stop. The journey to Lekki took over an hour. The Danfo bus was packed with people, all squeezed together on wooden benches. The conductor hung out the door, shouting destinations and collecting money. Chioma sat near the window, clutching her bag tightly. Her stomach churned with nervousness. What would she say when she got there? How would she approach the woman? What if the woman got angry? What if she called security? Chioma pushed the thoughts away. She had to do this. She had to know. When the bus finally reached Lekki, Chioma jumped off and started walking toward the plaza. Her heart raced faster with every step. The morning sun was hot on her face, and sweat dripped down her back. Finally, she saw it. Mama's kitchen. The shop looked different in the daylight. Brighter. Busier. There were several customers inside, sitting at small tables and eating. The woman in the yellow apron was moving between tables, clearing plates and refilling drinks. Chioma stood outside, frozen. Now that she was here, she couldn't move. Her feet felt glued to the ground. A young man walked out of the shop, nearly bumping into her. "Sorry," he said, stepping around her. The brief contact broke Chioma's paralysis. She took a deep breath and walked to the door. Her hand shook as she pushed it open. A small bell chimed above her head. The woman looked up from wiping down a table. For a moment, their eyes met. Chioma's lips trembled. "Mama?" she whispered. The word came out barely louder than a breath, but somehow, the woman heard it. Her face went completely white. The cloth dropped from her hand. And then something impossible happened. The woman's body began to fade, like smoke disappearing into air, like a photograph left too long in the sun. Chioma blinked, thinking her eyes were playing tricks on her. But when she opened them again, the woman was still fading, becoming transparent, becoming nothing. One of the customers noticed first. A man eating jollof rice looked up and his fork clattered to his plate. "Ah! Ah! What is this?" he shouted, jumping to his feet. The woman was now completely see-through, like a ghost in the movies. Her mouth opened as if to speak, but no sound came out. She reached one fading hand toward Chioma. Then she vanished completely. Gone. The shop erupted into chaos. "Ghost! Ghost!" someone screamed. Chairs scraped against the floor as people scrambled to their feet. A woman knocked over her drink in her rush to stand. "Jesus! Jesus Christ!" another customer shouted, making the sign of the cross. People pushed and shoved each other, desperate to get to the door. Plates of food crashed to the floor. A table tipped over with a loud bang. Within seconds, the shop was empty, except for Chioma. She stood frozen in the doorway, her bag of oranges tumbling from her head. They scattered across the floor, rolling in every direction. But Chioma didn't move to pick them up. Tears streamed down her face. Her whole body shook. "Mama," she whispered again, staring at the empty space where the woman had been standing. Her legs gave out, and she collapsed to her knees among the scattered oranges. The shop was silent now, except for her crying. Silent and empty and wrong. Outside, she could hear people shouting and running. Word was spreading fast. "There's a ghost at Mama's kitchen. I saw it with my own eyes. She just disappeared into thin air." Chioma stayed on the floor, sobbing. Her mother had been right there. And now she was gone again. Finally, Chioma forced herself to stand. She left the oranges where they lay. She walked out of the shop on trembling legs. The street outside was filled with people talking excitedly, pointing at the shop, their faces full of fear and excitement. No one paid attention to Chioma as she walked past them. No one saw the tears on her face or the way her hands shook. She walked to the bus stop and somehow found her way home. The journey back to Mushin was a blur. When she finally reached Uncle Tunde's apartment, she pushed open the door. Uncle Tunde was sitting on the bed, counting money. Auntie Blessing was cooking at the small kerosene stove in the corner. "Where are your oranges?" Uncle Tunde asked immediately, looking up. Chioma opened her mouth to speak, but the words caught in her throat. "I asked you a question," Uncle Tunde said, his voice hardening. "Where are the oranges?" I saw Mama," Chioma finally managed to say. Uncle Tunde's eyes narrowed. "What nonsense are you talking?" "I saw her," Chioma said, her voice growing stronger. "At Mama's kitchen in Lekki. She was there. She was working there. But then she disappeared. Like a ghost. Everyone saw it. Everyone ran away." Uncle Tunde stood up slowly. "So instead of selling your oranges and bringing money home, you spent the day making up crazy stories?" "I'm not making it up," Chioma cried. It's true, she was there. Mama was there. Uncle Tunde's face twisted with anger. Your mother is dead, he shouted. I took you to her funeral myself. Stop this madness. But I saw her. Uncle Tunde grabbed Chioma's arm roughly. You are a liar and a lazy child, he said. You wasted a whole bag of oranges so you could wander around Lagos telling ghost stories. He pushed her toward the corner of the room. You will kneel there for the rest of the day, he said. No food, no water. Maybe that will teach you not to lie. I'm not lying, Chioma whispered, tears running down her face. But Uncle Tunde had already turned away. Auntie Blessing said nothing, keeping her eyes on her cooking. Chioma knelt in the corner, her knees pressing against the hard concrete floor. The hours passed slowly. Her knees ached. Her stomach growled with hunger. But worse than any physical pain was the confusion in her heart. She had seen her mother. She knew she had, but her mother had disappeared like a ghost. Did that mean her mother really was dead? Had Chioma been seeing a spirit all along? The thought made her feel sick. The next day, as soon as Uncle Tunde left for work, Chioma slipped out of the apartment. She had to go back to the shop. She had to know if her mother would appear again. When she reached Lekki, her heart sank. Mama's kitchen was closed. The doors were locked. The windows were dark. Even the shops on either side were closed, their owners too afraid to work near a place where a ghost had been seen. Chioma stood outside for hours, waiting. But nothing happened. The shop stayed dark and empty. She came back the next day, and the day after that. Every day for 2 weeks, Chioma found excuses to escape Uncle Tunde's apartment and make the long journey to Lekki. Every day, she stood outside the closed shop, hoping to see her mother again, hoping to get answers. But the shop remained closed. Her mother never appeared. On the 15th day, Uncle Tunde caught her sneaking back into the apartment. Where have you been? He demanded. Selling oranges, Chioma lied. With no oranges? Uncle Tunde looked at her empty hands. With no money? Chioma said nothing. Uncle Tunde's face darkened. You've been going back to that shop, haven't you? He said. Chasing ghosts instead of working. Before Chioma could answer, there was a knock at the door. Uncle Tunde opened it to reveal a tall, well-dressed man. He had kind eyes and graying hair at his temples. Good afternoon, the man said politely. My name is Mr. Obi. I'm looking for a girl named Chioma. Uncle Tunde frowned. Why? May I come in? Mr. Obi asked. Uncle Tunde stepped aside reluctantly. Mr. Obi entered the small apartment, his eyes finding Chioma immediately. Something soft and sad crossed his face when he saw her. Are you Chioma? He asked gently. Chioma nodded, confused. My name is Chukwudi Obi, the man said. I was married to the woman who ran Mama's kitchen. Chioma's breath caught. You knew my mother? I knew a woman named Adana, Mr. Obi said. We were married for 5 years. I met her in Badagry. She was working at a small restaurant there, and I fell in love with her. His voice was thick with emotion. What does this have to do with Chioma? Uncle Tunde interrupted. Mr. Obi turned to him. On the day of the incident, he said, the day Adana disappeared in front of everyone, she came home first. It was the middle of the lunch rush. I was surprised to see her. He paused, swallowing hard. I asked her why she left the shop. She said she needed to tell me something important. She said there was a girl named Chioma, that I would hear about her soon, and that I should take good care of her. Chioma felt tears welling up in her eyes. I didn't understand, Mr. Obi continued. I tried to ask her what she meant, but she said she needed to use the bathroom. She went in and she never came out. When I heard what happened at the shop, I ran there, but she was gone. Since that day, I haven't seen her. He looked at Chioma with wet eyes. I'm a widower, he said. I have 3 children from my first marriage. When I met Adana, she loved them like they were her own. We tried to have children together, but it never happened. She always said my 3 children were enough, that we were already a family. His voice broke. "I never knew she was a ghost," he whispered. "For 5 years, she was my wife. She cooked for us. She laughed with us. She held me when I cried. She was real. She was so real." Tears ran down his face. "But now I understand," he said. "She came to me to fulfill her last wish, to ask me to take care of you the way she took care of my children." He looked at Uncle Tunde. "I want to take Chioma," he said. "I want to raise her. I want to give her a home and a family. I want to honor Adana's last request." "No," Uncle Tunde said immediately. "Please," Mr. Obi said. "I have money. I can give her a good life. I can send her to a good school. She belongs here," Uncle Tunde said. "Her mother left her in my care. Her mother is asking me to care for her now," Mr. Obi said firmly. "I said no." Uncle Tunde's voice rose. "Chioma works for this family. She brings in money. I'm not letting her go." Mr. Obi's face hardened. "You're making her hawk oranges," he said. "A child. You're using her. Get out of my house," Uncle Tunde said. Mr. Obi looked at Chioma one more time. "I'll come back," he promised her softly. "I won't give up." Then he turned and left. Uncle Tunde slammed the door behind him. "You will forget about that man," he told Chioma. "You will never see him again." But 3 days later, Uncle Tunde woke up screaming. His body was covered in painful sores that appeared overnight. By afternoon, his children developed the same mysterious illness. Auntie Blessing took them to the hospital, but the doctors were confused. They ran tests, but nothing showed up. The sores grew worse. Uncle Tunde developed a fever that wouldn't break. His children cried day and night from the pain. On the 5th day, Uncle Tunde called for Chioma. His face was gaunt and covered in sores. "Find that man," he whispered. "Mr. Obi. Find him and bring him here." Chioma found Mr. Obi's address from a neighbor who had seen his car. When Mr. Obi arrived at the apartment, Uncle Tunde was barely able to sit up. "Take her," Uncle Tunde said weakly. "Take Chioma. Just make this stop." Mr. Obi looked at him with pity. "This isn't my doing," he said quietly. "But I will take her, and I will love her the way Adana asked me to." He turned to Chioma and smiled. "Pack your things," he said gently. "You're coming home with me." Chioma looked around the small apartment, at the thin mattress on the floor, at Uncle Tunde, weak and suffering, at Auntie Blessing, who had never once defended her. She had nothing to pack. "I'm ready," she said. Mr. Obi took her hand. As they walked out of the apartment together, Chioma looked back one last time. Uncle Tunde was watching her, his face filled with fear and regret. But Chioma felt no anger toward him, only a quiet kind of peace. Her mother had kept her promise. Even from beyond death, she had made sure Chioma would be safe, would be loved, would have a home. As Mr. Obi led her to his car, Chioma whispered into the air, "Thank you, Mama." And somewhere, somehow, she felt her mother smile.